countries in Asia, Middle East, and Africa. He's based in Maryland in the US, and he's very, very passionate about Nigeria and the Nigerian situation. And he's thinking we need to realize a new Nigeria, Pastor Tayo, you are most welcome, and thank you for making yourself available for this meeting. My co-anchor will be Sonny Enebi and also Jumoke Akinte. And I want to thank you very, very much for all that you have done, especially in support of a new Nigeria, in support of the African Leadership Group, and the many, many other roles that you play. I just want to ask you, how come, when did you leave Nigeria? What made you leave Nigeria, and how are things in the Maryland area?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor, and good evening to everyone. First of all, Pastor, I am very grateful for the privilege and the honor to serve with you at the African Leadership Group, in particular to foster responsible, ethical, accountable leadership in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria into the other 56 countries around Africa. I am very deeply committed to the continent of Africa. The question you asked, what made me to leave Nigeria? It was more of a family need at that critical moment of my life. I'm an economist by training and a University of Ibadan alumni. Also, I'm from the Emperor High School, Igobi College. I know you are Kings, we are Emperor School. So, but leaving Nigeria for me was more of a family commitment where my wife and children then wanted to relocate because of the challenges they were going through. And so I had to leave everything I had and just join, because I had a word from the Lord that said, family is more important and stronger than any other thing I could pursue or attain. So that was what brought me into the shores of the United States of America. To the shores of the United States of America. And from there on, I took the calling of God to go to the mission fields. And in the last 40 years, I've been in 32 countries of the world, serving God, and of course, also fostering sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to ask Jumoke to please take over from here for a little while. Is a new Nigeria possible? Do you think a new Nigeria is possible? And what is your vision of what a new Nigeria would look like? And maybe pari passu with that, what is the old Nigeria? What is the problem with Nigeria? And do you think a new Nigeria is possible?
Thank you, Pastor. A new Nigeria is possible because new things are possible. But the first commitment to a new thing is, who is the source of the new? From my own foundation and from my own philosophical inclination, I believe there is nothing that God cannot do. And so whatever our faith is, whatever your faith is, to those who are listening and tuning, and of course being subscribers to the African Leadership Group, our faith in God can make new things happen. The whole world is broken. It's not just Nigeria that is broken. And so we need to reduce the burden of blame on ourselves. We do have problems, but every nation of the world in current times is experiencing a broken situation. Things that normally worked are no more working. Experts and specialists cannot even find solutions to very issues that are confronting the population of different nations. I'll give you an example, and I was sharing this with our children and my wife, and I said to them, in the last 10 years, they would say to you that, violence and destruction or stealing of breaking into cars was just, was a mega thing. It's not something that you find very rampant. But in today, especially living in the state where I'm living and in other states around the country, you find violence increasing by the moment, by seconds and hours. You find car hijacking and breaking into, even when you live in a community, a safe community or gated community. And so we see that the problems that were plaguing Nigeria and plaguing Africa is now spreading all over the world. So a new Nigeria is possible. Nigeria is broken, just like you've often said, Pastor, because of wrong leadership. But more importantly, I think Papa Adebayo at the last NLS also brought to the viewpoint that we have a very wrong foundation, which is the Constitution, and it needs to be reviewed and examined so that we can have a Constitution that is owned by the people for the people. And building on that, we can then begin to look at what is a responsible, ethical, accountable leadership. And like we've said in ALG, our commitment is to identify or set up a system or a process where we can identify, develop, equip, empower, and then deploy the right leaders at the right times. And so I have a strong belief that a new Nigeria is possible, and we must all be committed to that. We must all believe it. If only some of us believe it and others don't believe it, then we'll be like a house that is divided against itself that cannot stand. Every Nigerian, whether you are in Nigeria or in diaspora, must have a strong conviction that a new Nigeria is possible, and it will come to pass by the grace of God.
Thank you, Pastor T. I don't know if Mr. Chairman has other questions before we proceed. I want to thank you again for doing this.
Just carry on, Jumoke.
Okay.
Just carry on.
All right. Thank you. So today we're talking about deepening the process for this new Nigeria. And I know how passionate you are and how committed you are to this new Nigeria. And there's always this conversation that we've been talking. So, but we as citizens, we talk about leadership and their role in it. But what does deepening the process mean for us as citizens, and how can we contribute to this new Nigeria that we're looking for?
Thank you very much, Sister Jumi. Deepening is a very powerful word. It implies fostering an advancement. It implies accelerating things that are critical for holistic development, not just partial development, but holistic development. I use an acronym which guides what I do in development, and it's called SPIES, S-P-I-E-S. There's a spiritual component. It doesn't matter where your faith lies. There is something above the natural. There's a physical component. There's an intellectual component. There's an emotional component, and there's a social component. Those are the SPIES form the foundation upon which we build upon. And so when we talk about deepening, we cannot just be looking at one component of the cycle. We have to look at every component of the cycle. Some people say religion does not matter in politics. Religion has a place in politics. Culture has a place in politics. And our emotional quotient and intelligence has a place in nation building. And so when you look at the word deepening, it implies advancing something towards an end that is definite, that is shared and mutually agreed by all stakeholders. And so when we talk about deepening, it's not only relating to the leaders, but also to the citizens. We must all have the same shared conviction that we can advance, we can accelerate, and we can accentuate. And that word accentuate is what, it's a new word for me also, but looking at the dictionary, it tells us we must make it more prominent, practicable, and noticeable. Whatever we both agree, both leaders and citizens, based on traits, values, and virtues, based on qualities that we all agree to, it must be prominent, it must be practicable, and it must be noticeable. That is the word that is deepening. And deepening is just the phrase I like to coin out that it's from root to fruit. If the root is bad, the fruit will be bad.
Thank you, sir. I just put up the slides that you had prepared. Do you want to walk through the slides, or do you want to just engage? Okay.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and help advance the slides.
I'll do that. Okay, you can, yes, you can stay on this. I'll do that, and I'll pause. When I pause, I'll give you a sign to allow comments or questions accordingly. But before I go on further, I want to share two timeless principles that have been proven to foster deepening of a progressive movement or a cause. Those principles, it doesn't matter what your faith is, it will help all of us as we move forward in Nigeria. It is a principle of number one that produces peace and prosperity. And then it's, the timeless principle goes like this. I urge you, first of all, to pray for all people. Ask God to help them, intercede on their behalf, and give thanks to them. The second timeless principle says, pray for kings and all who are in authority, so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives, marked by godliness and honesty. The slides are moving so fast. Please go back to just stay on this. And so these two timeless principles produce peace, prosperity, productivity, and it enhances the environment, which is environmental sustainability. But in order for us to be able to do this, that is why I said it doesn't matter where your faith lies. We must all have a call to prayer. We must all be committed to pray to the one who we have conviction and we believe in. And it says in there, it says, first of all, that means before we do anything, first things first, to pray for all people. And we're talking about inclusive government, inclusive growth, inclusive development. I think this is the anchor for inclusive growth, development, leadership, and government. We must pray. It doesn't matter whether I belong to party A or party B. We must pray for all people. Secondly, we must pray for kings and all who are in authority. And that means spiritual authority, political authority, traditional authority, public servants, private sector authority, community authority, and people groups authority, youth leaders, women leaders. And that is the foundation of a deepening process that we are all committed to. And the end point for Nigeria, as you see here, is the vision for a new Nigeria towards greatness. We can achieve greatness in Nigeria. It doesn't matter how far things have gone. Next slide, please. Now, I want to give you the context of which will help us to move towards a new Nigeria. Before I do that, I just before I go on to the context, I want to talk about character. Since we're talking about deepening, we must all commit to a call for character. Without character being a solid foundation, whatever we build on it can crumble in a moment of time, in crisis, in challenges, and in conflicts. But when we all agree and are mutually guided and guarded by a character base, then it is easier for us to handle conflicts, challenges, and crises. And so I want to share with us 10 virtues that I believe very strongly that we must all commit to in order to move Nigeria forward. Whether you're a citizen, or you're a political leader, or public service leader, or you are in the private sectors. And those 10 virtues are: number one, humility. I will not go into expounding it. I'll just mention them. Number two is integrity. Number three is justice. Number four is collaboration. Number five is courage. Number six is temperance. 7 is accountability. 8 is humanity or empathy. 9 is a sense of purpose. And 10 is unity. When we all commit to these 10 virtues as citizens and leaders, I believe it will be easier for us to resolve ethnic conflicts, to resolve crises and challenges in any area of development. So my passion and philosophy and our passion in ALG is to ensure that character matters, character counts, and character education is embedded in all levels of government, all levels and sectors: health, education, private sector. And when we do this, I can assure you that we'll be on the path to a new Nigeria. Now let's look at the context. Do you know that a nation without responsible, ethical, accountable leaders, and that stands for REAL, R-E-A-L, and effective governance affects everyone? We're all affected, whether you like it or not, whether you are poor or rich, we're all affected. Africa has suffered from a shortage of effective leaders, and poor leadership has cost the continent immensely over the past few decades, creating major problems in the political and economic sphere. And this is a quote by Nelson Mandela. Next slide, please. And I like these, the next two quotes. It says, citizen-centric democracy means that women and men enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protection in electoral systems and nation building. And the emphasis there is all enjoy same rights, same resources, or access to same resources, opportunities, and protection in electoral systems for nation building and nation building. George Orwell put it more appropriately. People who elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices. So let's move to the next slide, please. Now, I want to quote a pastor on this, and this would also help us as we deep into the root of building a new Nigeria. Our pastor and founder of ALG is a proponent of building a new Nigeria. And this quote speaks very well to his heart. We must get it right. Nigeria is too big to fail, too mighty to lose, too prosperous to waste. We must put aside all the days of ignorance and come up with the days of knowledge and understanding. And that is very important. We must all come up with the days of knowledge and understanding. And that is one of the passion and aims of ALG, to empower citizens, to enlighten citizens, to educate citizens, emerging leaders, current leaders about what it takes to move in the right direction. A World Bank group at their annual 2014 meeting has this to say about citizens' engagement. Citizen engagement or voice participation and accountability in decision-making can help create an inclusive society. An inclusive society must have institutions, structures, and processes that empower all groups to participate so that they can hold their governments to account or accountable. Next slide, please. And we're going to move forward on those very quickly.
I'm not sure why I'm having issues with my next slide.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I have mine here. All right, I'll just go over what I have here. All right, the next two contests that I want to share with you is from McKinsey Consulting on Government. Okay, thank you. An empathetic citizen observes perspective will allow public sector leaders to create programs and products that generate significantly better outcomes at a significantly faster pace. These anchors my belief that we can have a new Nigeria. A new Nigeria is possible with an empathetic, citizen-obsessed perspective. We're talking about obsession, a love for our country, love for what is right and good. And that can only happen when you and I take responsibility. And it will allow public sector leaders to create programs and products that will bring better outcomes at a significant, fast pace. And lastly, we have there, Nigeria deserves, needs, and must have outstanding leadership. We must have clear criteria for the kind of leaders we want. We must work collectively to get it right. So this is not a Lone Ranger work. It's not one organization. It must be collective citizens, collective organizations, public sector, private sector, civil society, traditional organizations, all kinds of other informal groupings. We must all work collectively to get it right. Next slide, please. Okay.
I'm not sure why I'm having delay. Okay, but for some reason my computer has delay.
Okay. All right, I'll share these last two, which is what we have on the context, and then we'll pause a little bit. If Nigeria gets it right, the whole of Africa will get it right. I think that we're all convinced about that. We're the largest, most populous nation in Africa. We are the biggest democracy in Africa, and we also have a high GDP rate. And so it tells us that whatever we do, we can change the continent of Africa. And two other quotes more, and ending with what our pastor and founder has often said. Mary Crossan of Massachusetts Institute of Technology has this to say: character is more than ethics, and fostering a culture where it is valued equally alongside competence can result in better decisions and better outcomes. And so we can see that character is the foundation. Getting things right, doing what is good and right at all times. And lastly, from our pastor and founder of ALG, chairman, Pastor Ituah, we need a new Nigeria. The emphasis there is need. We need a new Nigeria. It's not about whether it's possible or not, it's about the need that works for all Nigerians, irrespective of their tribes, financial status, gender or religion, a Nigeria that is achievable because every Nigeria does the right thing and votes for Nigeria, not for individuals, nor party. A new Nigeria is possible with voting for the right, competent, capable, compassionate leader with character and integrity. I think if we end it today here, we've spoken so much about the power of character. And our goal is to put together a character resource that can be used at all levels of government, that can be used in all institutions, whether it's health or education, that can be embedded into onboarding process. Because like I said, it is a joint and collective action, a mutually agreed to virtues and principles. And I think in ALG, we're up to the task. And that's one of our goals and aim, to ensure that a shared principle of character is embedded into all aspects of society. It's taught in churches, it's taught in mosques, it's taught in any environment where people are, in particular, the citizens of Nigeria. Next slide, please.
Okay.
If you want me to pause, I can pause because we have a lot to share so that people are not overly burdened with information.
Okay. So I want to just ask a question, which is really a segue into the next set of slides that you're going to be discussing. You know, people would come up and say, well, we've been talking. We've analyzed the problems of Nigeria. And I think even generations yet unborn understand the problems of Nigeria. But it's tangible solutions or action items that we can take. And I know you've spoken a little bit about that. And on NLS, we've been meeting, and I know it's one of the things that you also talk about. So can you also lead us as we're here, that what are some of those tangible to-do that we as everyday Nigerian citizens can begin to work towards for this new Nigeria?
Thank you so much. I call that, I have a phrase or a model that we can use, just like you said, every citizen, what are we to do? And I'm going to keep on emphasizing the foundational base of character, values, and virtues. What you and I can do as citizens is to ensure that we speak up. Whatever we see, we'll speak up. We'll stand up for what is right and good. When there is zero tolerance, the action that is needed to establish a strong foundation must have a zero tolerance for what is not good and what is not right. Has nothing to do with ethnic group, has nothing to do with religious inclination or affiliation. It has to do with what is good and right. And every life, every human being wants what is good and right. So for you and I, we must be agents of good and right as citizens. Actually, that is the core of citizenship and nation building. So I would say the first action point is for us to rebuild our character, to rebuild our identity as a nation, to rebuild our identity as citizens, because the character traits and values that we profess and confess will shape our behavior, our thoughts, and eventually every action and decision that we'll make, whether you are a leader or a citizen. So that would be the starting point. And like I said earlier on, our goal will be to develop and for each person to contribute how we can put together a unified structural character training at all levels of institutional, educational, religious, private, and public sector. So that would be number one. And then number two, which we can address later on, was one of the things Papa Adebanjo brought to us. There must be a revision and a revision rather, of our constitution. We must go back to the basics and see, is this constitution working for us? And if it's not working, we need to have all stakeholders at the table and determine the way forward to establish the constitution that will work for all Nigerians. So we have character, which is a C word. We have constitution. Then we must all commit to do our part. I think what is important is that we pass the blame, not the ball. You know, one of our sons is in professional sports, and he always tells me what the coach tells him is, don't pass the blame, pass the ball. So it means whenever any member of the team drops the ball, then you pick it up and then you do what? You pass the ball, not the blame. Another action step is for us to stop passing the blame. Let us take the ball that is being dropped and keep moving the ball in the good and right direction. And that entails commitment on each individual part in your own space and in your own industry. So those are three critical foundational things that we need to do.
Thank you. So I have slide number 8. If you can maybe just take us through those slides and then we'll open up for questions.
Okay, I'll take you to the next series of slides, talk about the future of Africa's public service. And the reason why I have identified this is that we are one nation among, I think, about 58 nations now in Africa. And so it is important for us to see the trend that the continent is moving forward, particularly since we're a leading organization. Number one, the question is, what are future-focused governments and public sector organizations institutions and public servants doing in other countries in Africa to achieve the Sustainable Development 2030. But not only the SDG 2030, but also the African Agenda for Action 2063, which 54 presidents of nations in Africa have signed to. And so we have a responsibility to ensure that we align not only with SDG 2030, but Africa Agenda 2063. So what are other African nations and public servants and political leaders doing? Number one, we must have value-driven, right public service leadership and empowered public service workforce. A good example is Rwanda. I won't go into much details. That is very important. Value-driven, that our public service is value-driven, and the public service workforce operates on values. And when you do that, it will reduce. I don't think it will fully eliminate corruption, but it will reduce corruption greatly, and it might. And as long as we continue to work at it. Number two, we must manage our population trends and transformative forces. If you look at our population, it has grown enormously in the last 10 years. We must find a way to ensure that our population matches productivity. Because if you look at our population and our GDP or our productivity, you'll see the reason why we are classified as a middle income or low income country, depending on who is doing this classification, is because of the ratio of one person to 1 unit of productivity, and that makes it low. But if we are able to manage our population trends effectively and increase our productivity, I think we'll be on the right path. And secondly, we must make transformative forces. We talk about new Nigeria, we're looking for transformation. And transformation means a total empowerment, both of human, environment, technology, that is relevant to achieve the level of productivity we want. And one of the suggestions, key thoughts that came out of our NLS is that we must digitize Nigeria. It is important. If we digitize the public procurement system, corruption will be greatly reduced, because 80%, one of our key thought leaders shared with us that 80% of corruption is through public procurement and expenditure. Number three, we must develop and core competencies of next generation leaders from cradle. We cannot wait until they get to a particular age before we start instilling and inspiring and inform them about character and core competencies. We must develop a model of training that goes from what you call kindergarten up to college and graduate level, and then adulthood, of character and core competencies that shape the habits, attitudes, and actions of successful public service leaders. And then next, we must strike an appropriate internal and external balance and leverage the economic power of diaspora for resource mobilization, development, and distribution. One of the things you and I have talked about, and we've also observed, is that there are many of us in diaspora that are willing to invest, but the business environment, the enabling environment is not there to enhance proper investments to be able to achieve the right returns. And so it is very important. And we're seeing that happen in countries like Ghana, in countries like Rwanda. Again, they are putting more investment in balancing or creating a business enabling environment, which helps to move and attract diaspora investments and also foreign domestic investments. So that is important for us. And if you look at our Business Enabling Environment Index, which is a World Bank tool, you'll see that we are right below at the bottom, which means that we are not attractive to investors, despite the fact that we do have a flow of investments, but we're not very attractive among the other nations that are in Africa. And so we must consider this as a critical point. Next, we must fight fraud, cybercrime, bribery, and corruption. We don't need to expound on that. I think we all understand where we are as far as that is concerned. But we must be committed, we must be passionate about it, not only in the public sector, but also the private sector, in the development assistance sector, and then in the civil society sector. So every sector, we must ensure that we infuse anti-corruption models and training that will enable people to do what is good and right. And then we must also have repercussions for not doing what is good and right. That is very strong. I think I'll just go to the next three. We must shift to high performance culture. Average is not tolerable. In Nigeria, we've tolerated average. Actually, average has been considered the best that people can produce. We must come to a point where we realize that we must go the extra mile and stress for high performance culture. We're seeing it in other countries in Africa and beyond Africa. Next, we must shift our mindsets, attitudes, knowledge, and values of citizens. I've talked about managing procurement through digitization. We must focus on human capital development, improve public finance management, invest in infrastructure, and lastly, which is very important to all of us, government, public service sector must deliver value. They cannot just produce goods and services that are of low standard. They must produce goods and services that are of value, and they must serve the society through citizen-centric democracy. And one of the things ALG is planning to do in that is to have periodic citizens perception index, which is a survey to get a feel of what citizen satisfaction assessment of public goods and services are. Thank you.
You want me to move to the next slide?
Well, you said we'll take a pause, but the next slide is the African Leadership Group mission, vision, and core values. So we can pause just to allow people to digest and reflect.
Okay. So do you want to take questions at this point before we move into?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have any questions at this point? Because there's a lot here to digest. If anyone has any question, please raise your hand and then we'll call you. If you have the name of a device, we ask that you please rename yourself so that we know who we are calling up. Okay, I have Pastor Eneda. His hand is up. We've asked you to unmute. Please go ahead and ask your question, Pastor Eneda.
All right, good afternoon and evening. This is Stephen. Yeah, thank you, sir. I was following through all your presentation, and that is really great. But this is my take. This is you talk from policy point of view, Mr. Tayo Fagbenro, and from programmatizing this to become what you have articulated means there must be a political power behind that. Now, look at this beautiful presentation, which is strategic. But the question over the years is that beautiful things like this are there, but how do you operationalize it? And to operationalize it comes with political will. And this is actually national agenda. When you talk about transformation of Nigeria, Africa, these are actually a great proposal. But the problem is that if you are not the president, if you are not even maybe even the ball is in president court. So now what do we do from private sector perspective? What do we do from the individual perspective? to bring this to the programmatic agenda that transforms society. So that is a missing link in all of this. Sorry, I may take you back to that, but this is my concern, that in all of these things, yes, let us go about it, but people who are in charge of the affairs are the one who's supposed to take this thing in and run with it. Thank you.
Pastor T, do you want to respond to that? Okay.
Okay, yes, I can do that. Yeah, your question is, how do we operationalize what we have learned so far, which is basically the establishment of a character-driven and character-based shared value foundation. Thank you so much, Pastor Stephen Eneda. That is very important. I think I mentioned fragments of how we can really actualize or operationalize this. But one thing I want to also add to just throw light on what you have said, which we have held on for years, is that everything depends on the top. There's an objective look or reasoning to that. But I will tell you that if we go and study best practices of countries that have witnessed transformation, I can give you an example of the Arab Spring. It was not from the top. It was grassroots young men and women who got tired of the old, who had a strong conviction and came together in unity with a commitment to press on for change. And I think that's why I commend the youth, the young generation that we have. And we need to support them and empower them. Secondly, we need a strong advocacy structure system in place. We have a lot of civil society organizations in Nigeria, and we need to know how active are they in actually putting pressure on those that you said are on the top, which is right. The people on the top are of the old value system, which is broken. And we're trying to introduce a new value system. So we need people who are committed to change. We need a movement that is consistent, steadfast, and will not give up, to ensure that character is embedded into every aspect of society. You mentioned private sector, public sector, civil society, and all the sectoral functional areas, health and education, transportation, at the airport, at every public space. There must be the same values and the same virtues and acts of behavior that is over the board to all citizens. And so I share your point in the sense that we must operationalize this. And what we would like to do at ALG is, like I said, is to identify civil society organizations, people groups that we can partner with, and together come with a character curriculum that can be implemented at all levels. It can be used at corporate onboarding. It can be used at recruitment in schools, admissions. And so when we all know what we stand for, we would all be able to act right and good. I hope that gives some insight into your question.
Yeah. And if I can just add a little bit to that also, that's part of this reorientation that we've been talking about, right? No matter how brilliant the ideas are, the strategies are, there is a will. And I don't know that it's just the political will, it's also the citizens' will and engagement for us to reorient ourselves, right? And to begin to shift our mindset in a different way. What is the percentage of the political leadership and compared to the citizens? So, and that brings us probably to the next phase of what you're going to be discussing. I think as citizens, we have a lot of power to make the change. And this is us empowering ourselves with information and not to just be powerless and feel that this less than 1% of leaders, and I don't know if I want to call them leaders, or people that find themselves in leadership position can continue to manipulate the system to their own advantage while we sit back helpless and feel that we have no say in this. they drive and they direct the affairs of the nation. So that brings us to the next set that you're going to be talking about. In terms of what ALG is doing, the vision, the core values, and our strategic focus area, which is really bringing power to the people. The citizens are the ones that really should be driving government in terms of the public sector, and even in the private sector, because this is all part of the larger society. So, Pastor T, I'll yield to you. Tell me which slide you want me to put up.
Okay.
Should I start with slide 10?
Yes. You can go ahead. But before you go into that, thank you, Pastor Eneda, and of course, Sister Jumi, for mentioning that. There are two concepts that I want to let us understand, and that is the concept of citizens' engagement and empowerment. And like I said, for effective democracy, yes, the political will is there, but where the political will is lacking, the citizens must be educated, enlightened, and empowered, and must be ready to take action. Even though we may all have some differences, I like what late Robert Mugabe said, that we must fight a good fight. We must fight a good fight, not by arms, not by machetes, not by guns, but we must fight a good fight of character and values, that we can bring down anyone at any political level, just like you said, with political will, who does not align with a shared and universal character, values, and virtues that we all ascribe to. So it is very important. But there are two concepts that I see that are challenging to us: the concept of state building and the context of nation building. And I'll just give you a summary. State building is the task of building and strengthening functional and durable key state institutions capable of fulfilling external attributes of security from external threats and enhancing productivity. And so when you talk about those who are in political will, that is the state building. They have a state building responsibility. But nation building, and let me see what share with us what nation building is. It refers to the broader process of developing a shared sense of value, political community, and behavior that is capable of building together the population of a given state with responsibility of challenging the government. So so you see that there is a difference between state building and nation building. Nation building also refers to a process of citizens' engagement that is strategic, facilitative, and at all local levels. And that's what we need in the new Nigeria. We need an understanding of the concept of nation building, where we have citizens who understand citizens' social responsibility and are willing to live by the conduct of behavior that is expected of a good and right citizen. Thank you. We can go to the next slide.
Okay. So I want to ask, is there a way that you can quickly go through the slide so that we can engage the participants more in questions? If we can just...
we can, let me, okay. The next two slides, and then we'll move on. We can then go to questions, and then I would end up with ALG strategic priorities, the actions we need to take. Okay. You can start. We can, let's move to the challenge of the Nigerian Project Challenge. We can do that. I would encourage everyone. We do have a fact sheet, which is on our website, to look at our mission, vision, and values. But just for clarity, the mission of our African Leadership Book is to inspire Africa's greatness by driving and delivering, and you keep hearing the word REAL, which is real, responsible, ethical, accountable, servant leadership, effective governance, and accountability. That is our mission. And simply put, our vision is to, let me just read, our vision is to enhance fully emancipated, well-functioning, organized, and first world Africa again, through responsible, ethical, accountable leadership at all levels. All right. Now, I want to share with us, and some of us who've been on the platform remember that Pastor Ituah on March 9 at one of our NLS had shared with us what we consider as the Nigeria Project Challenge. And the call to action for each one of us is to identify what challenge are you going to be part of. There are 6 challenges that he proposed to us. One is the challenge of a change of our constitution, making sure that the constitution helps the restructuring of Nigeria. So for you and I, you must do you identify with this challenge, and are you willing to be a participant to foster not just advocacy, but responsible actions to ensure that these comes to bear? Number 2 challenge, the challenge of having a constitutional conference where all stakeholders come together and discuss the formation of Nigeria as a country and its existence and sustenance. That is a challenge. And I believe some of you may be called to be part of that challenge. Number 3 challenge is that challenge of building peace and reconciliation dialogues across all the ethnic divides to help us prevent a potential national ethnic conflict. Again, it depends upon your leading and your persuasion in that area. Number 4 challenge, and this relates to education. We need an educated workforce. We need an educated citizen and population. The challenge of championing education and making sure that we have all the 20 million out of school children back in school, properly educated, equipped and empowered to become productive citizens of Nigeria. 20 million, it's a big number. If we can drive that challenge to the finish line, we can see a new Nigeria emerging. The 5th challenge is the challenge to fight corruption. Actually, one of the statements I caught through research says corruption is a disease. We must understand that it's a disease that keeps destroying not only the livelihood of people, but the well-being of the society. So we must rise up and face the challenge of fighting corruption and make sure that our leaders use Nigerian resources to better the life of Nigerians and not themselves. In this regard, you and I must speak up, stand up, and then act up. We cannot just let bygone be bygone and continue to allow the status quo. And the last challenge is the challenge of having a free and fair election process, ensuring that the agency that is given the responsibility is transparent, accountable, and reflect the will of Nigerian people. Again, we have the responsibility to drive this, to put pressure on all systems that are responsible to ensure that we have a free and fair election and that the reporting and the responsibility is transparent, accountable, and reflects our values. Thank you. All right. So we can go to the
Which slide do you want to go to?
African Leadership Group. The journey, yeah, let's talk about our journey so that people can understand a bit better what we have done in the past 2 years. Okay, next slide, just flip over that slide to the statistics. I have that.
Do you want the strategic priorities?
The highlights of 2021, 2022. If you don't, do you have that? Okay, yes. The NLS, which is the Nigeria Leadership Series, as you all know, is a platform to enhance effective citizen dialogue with Nigerian thought leaders. It was established in May 2021. And in 2021, we had 29 sessions, 27 thought leaders, 23 males and 4 females, and we had 2 open mic sessions. And the sectoral search, which came through YouTube and other searches, we have the breakdown there. And if you look at it very well, We have Nigeria in the diaspora is just about 9%, security about 6%, economic development 7%, and you see the highest value there is democracy, which is 25%, which means people want to understand what democracy is. And one of the things that we're doing is to partner with the Electoral College to ensure that their training or curriculum on literacy is embedded in at every level. When people are literate about the act and dynamics of politics, we will have less conflicts and we will be able to vote for the right people, voting for Nigeria, not individuals. Thank you. Next slide, please. 2022. In 2022, we had 49 sessions. Is that what you have there? Let me make sure.
I think I have 48, but maybe it was my typo.
Oh, you have 48. Just a minute. I'll make sure that, okay. 2022. Yeah, we have 48, you're right. We had 48 sessions, 45 thought leaders who were featured, 38 males and 7 females. And you can see that our ratio of gender inclusion is increasing. And one open, we had 3 mics actually. And then the leadership sector search, we had leadership and politics and leadership for nation building on top of the line. So you can see that leadership and nation building is actually very important. Citizens are starting to have insights, to be equipped and to be empowered. And I believe at ALG we are up to the task and we will need your cooperation, contribution, and participation. All right, 2020.
We can also make these statistical slides available to those that are interested.
Okay, 2023. 2023. In 2023, we have had 12 sessions so far, including today, with 12 thought leaders and one, actually we've had, it should be 13 sessions, one open mic with 12 thought leaders. Anyway, we can look at that. And our focus this year has been leadership and nation building, the 2023 elections, and of course, what we are discussing today, the path and the rebuilding of a new Nigeria. The global implications of Nigeria elections, we talked about that in one of our NLS sessions. The state of the nation, which our founder and chairman, Pastor Ituah, presented to us, the way forward, and what you all are saying and other Nigerians are aspiring to for a new Nigeria. Thank you. We move to the next slide. That is the extracts of thoughts for a new Nigeria. Got that? Okay, yeah. Now we have here from the NLS, we've been able to extract the key thoughts that some of our thought leaders have shared with us, and we believe will form the framework of action and strategic priorities for ALG. That means it includes you, because we are looking up to your cooperation and commitment to contribute to some of these key thoughts that we believe can shape Nigeria for better and for greatness. All right. Okay. Number one is leadership, character development, and training. And I think we've spoken so much about that. And it's very important that we all understand that we are committed to building a curriculum that covers and emphasizes character development. Next is youth talent development and empowerment for nation building. We have a high youth population, but we must empower them for nation building. And the emphasis that is for nation building. And I've been able to clarify the difference between the state building, which is more on a political will structure, and this nation building, which is more on the citizen-centered or citizen-centric structure. And we need the youth because they constitute a higher percentage of the population. And next, we must have a vibrant, agile, and responsive civil society organizations who can enhance citizens' advocacy for transformation of mindsets and actions. And this is kind of in order as we perceive it, but we're also welcome to inputs and further restructuring. We must also ensure citizen participation in political parties. I'm sure those of you who have been participants on the NLS, when hearing the cry, join a political party, participate in a political party, get involved. And if we don't get involved, then we cannot have much change, or we cannot effect much changes. Next, please. Okay. I like this. See something, stand up and speak up. That is important. As simple as it is, whatever you and I as citizens see, we need to be able to communicate, bring it to a point where others are aware, and through the awareness, we can stand up and speak up. The problem we have had in Nigeria is that we have been too dormant, too quiet, and we see things and we just let it go. I think for a new Nigeria, we must all committed to and have in every area. You see something that is not right and good at the local government level, at the state level, at the national level, stand up and speak up. Next, enabling environment for diaspora investments. That is very important for us because our diaspora wield a lot of financial power that can be enhanced for productive purposes and for development in the country. And then next, we must have open, transparent governments at all levels with periodic citizens briefings. Pastor Sonny highlighted this at one of our NLS, I think on the March 16 NLS, that it is important that our public leaders engage the citizens and share the state of the nation, the state of the states, which is on the governmental level, and the state of local government, the state of activities, actions, services, and what they are doing. And that's what will enhance the new Nigeria: openness, transparent governments at all levels. And he suggested quarterly briefings, monthly briefings, not just for the press, but also citizens, like town halls. And then we must have citizens' engagement or empowerment to influence public service delivery. And I've talked about that. One of the tools we are going to create at ALG is Citizens' Perception Index, a survey that will determine what the citizen satisfaction rate of provided public services are. And lastly, we must constantly scan what governments are doing. Who is doing what, where, how? WDWWH. And we must continuously have citizens' awareness. I believe that if we take these key thoughts that have been espoused by our leaders who have spoken to us on the NLS, we can move Nigeria from the baseline of what it is, a broken situation, and keep building, grounding on the right foundation of character, values, and virtues, and moving it to the point of having a new Nigeria that is sustainable, peaceful, productive, and represents our identity as faithful and good citizens. Thank you. I think we can pause here before we go to the other key thoughts, leadership, key thoughts on new Nigeria talks about restructuring the country in a responsible and resourceful way. We've talked about that. One of the points that was highlighted under that is to map local capacity, and I think I have it here, local government economic development capacity mapping and development. We have to know what are the resources that are in each local government so that we can see how to foster sustainability, development and sustainability, so that they don't depend upon sharing of the cake, but rather mobilizing resources to strengthen their economic development capacity. And then we must have a holistic approach to security. Security concerns everyone. And so we must all participate in a shared understanding and a shared vision of security. Now, what we have is that we are all dependent on the state, which is, of course, the responsibility of the state in state building to enhance or provide an environment for security. But we must also participate as citizens. And it again brings us back to see something, stand up, and speak up. And so where you notice any issues that relate to security or security challenges, we must see, we must speak up, and we must stand up and speak up. And lastly, we must increase our tax revenue GDP ratio.
So if we can just pause here for a minute, Pastor T, and I want us to talk more and have everyone engaged on the local government economic development, capacity mapping and development. And this is where we come in as citizens. This is where we can be empowered. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria. And we started an exercise on ALG platform, the chat room, that we should identify our local government areas, who the officials are, what the budget is, and also to identify the challenges in those local government areas. And this is where we can begin to hold town hall meetings, whether it's under the tree, whether it is having community participation where we can ask questions. I don't know that the politicians that are not interested in this Nigeria that works for all are going to voluntarily schedule town hall meetings, but this is where the citizens need to be informed with what is going on in their local government areas. And by knowing who the officials are, knowing what the budget is, the challenges, and even some of the policies for that local government area, that's part of the empowerment. And then work with civil society organizations in that local government area. ALG is looking to partner with the civil society organizations in the different local government areas to help identify those challenges and then work with the community on resolution and holding those officials accountable. So that's the grassroots level. That's bringing it down to where things are really happening. So that's one way for us to be really engaged from bottom up in holding these officials accountable and building the new Nigeria that we need. Okay.
Yes, Sister Jumi, thank you. Let me just add this. In essence, what Sister Jumi is saying, we are making a call to each and every one of us present here, like Pastor has said, to take what challenge are you going to be part of? And this is one of the challenges of New Nigeria. That is one of the imperatives, New Nigeria, local government economic capacity mapping and development. If we all look at, if we are over 100 or about 100 on the platform, and each one of us identify one or two local governments, it may not be in your state of residence, it may be another state, and you do the diligence of finding out, all the information is there. We can do the research, collect the information, see what is out there, and then submit to our and then map them out and provide a technical expert analysis, and then respond with a technical brief and engage the local government so that we can see that they are using their resources in order to mobilize more resources and enhance sustainability.
Thank you, sir. We can take a couple of questions. I know that the last two slides are more for closing. So do you want to take the hands that are up now, or do you just want to go through the last two slides?
Yes. No, we can take questions. Yes. So, now let's take the questions so that we can digest.
I've asked Madam Adenike Grange to please unmute. Go ahead, madam.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I want to identify myself with your last few comments on local government. The reason is this: we have been doing a lot of things and it's not working at the federal level. It's not working at the state level. And this should suggest to us that we have not been able to engage the people at their own local level. Because many of them, they may be literate, but they're only literate in their language. And we talk way above them. Even if they're able to join us in discussion, they will not be able to understand. So I honestly feel that whatever we are doing, and please, I do not want to belittle everything that has been said today. It's been wonderful. You have the policy, the plan, the processes, and these are to now be inculcated at some levels. We have to start from the local level and then gradually bring them to the state level and federal. And we have a constitution that will enable us to do that. We don't have to wait to change our constitution before we can do it. I do believe that, if we do this, even the local people will become politically literate enough to be able to identify who are the leaders that are not doing well at the higher levels. And so the elections will be more validated by them, because they are the ones that have now gotten to know how to elect. Many of them do not know how to elect or who to elect for. So, but we have to teach them. We cannot teach them from the federal pulpit. We cannot. We need to go right down to local government level. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And I want to maybe make an example of primary care as a health care system that can only thrive at local government level. It has not taken off very well because the local government itself is not well organized. So what we are going to do is to organize the local government or help them to organize themselves. We can't organize them. Help them to organize themselves so that they can become empowered to take advantage of the various policies and plans and processes that have been given to them based on the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma. Pastor T, I'm just going to take two more and then you can address. Yeah. And then we have one more, Charles is also. So Barrister Kichi, please go ahead and ask your question. If you could keep it brief.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much. Brilliant session so far. I've enjoyed a lot of it. What I wanted to associate myself with was something that somebody else had kind of mentioned, and it's about the how. I think that was the pastor that spoke, the first question about the how. And so how are all of these stated goals going to be implemented? And I've heard what has been presented by Pastor Fagbenro. What sort of concerns me a little bit is, and this has come up in discussions, in the field. I am, just by a bit of background, I operate, we have an NGO called the Institute of Leadership Development, and we are in discussions now to partner with ALG. the strategy is important to us, to understand that. We see the perfect role for ALG as an intervention driver in this, rather than being pulled, all across the place. Where are the comparable examples? I'll give you one or two. In the UK, you have the JF Foundation. The JF Foundation is a foundation, that's Joseph Rowntree, is a foundation that doesn't necessarily do these things by itself. It supports small groups at the local level by providing funding, providing support, capacity building, but it develops strategies, just like you have said, just like you have laid out here now. So similar, comparable ones as well will be like MacArthur Foundation and the Ford Foundation. They are all in the same sort of operational class, but they do strategic work and then fund, empower, support lower level partners to do the work. How do you want to proceed?
Thank you. Thank you. Pastor T, I'm just going to take the other two comments since there are only two comments left for you to address it. May I have Dr. Ayo Shonde? Please go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll have Charles.
Thank you, I want to join the cream in appreciating the effort of this organizer and the speakers. It's a wonderful platform for us to discuss this kind of issue. The area I want to contribute is area of local government. I'm speaking out of the country right now, and we can see what is playing in county and local communities in the world. I once traveled with a senator and a House of Rep man, and I showed them, see what is happening here. Why can't we replicate this kind of thing in Nigeria? We find out that our National Assembly is one of the major problems. If we can do organizations like this, that's why I say kudos to you for organizing this kind of thing. Why is it impossible for our government to give local government the autonomy? Because we are talking to the grassroots right now. It's impossible to touch the grassroots without reforming the local government. If there's no autonomy at local government level, our people will continue to be deprived of their national benefit, so to say, or what they call political whatever benefit. What can be done? They've just passed the process now. What can be done to ensure that local government gets its autonomy? Whatever we are talking without that autonomy, we just be on paper. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And then I'll have Mr. Charles speak, and then maybe Pastor T, you can respond to that, and then we'll go ahead and finish with your closing slides.
Okay.
Right. Oh, we also have Akin, so maybe we'll take the next set after Charles.
All right, thank you, JT. I think that, well, I agree with everyone. A great session. Like many of the others, this has been wonderful. Just have a quick observation. I was looking at those statistics and those numbers that you put up. It appears that there are a couple of demographics that are not quite represented. For example, diaspora. In some of the sessions, diaspora has been represented 1%, showed 1%. I think women representation is about 15%, well, not too bad compared with other things going on in the country. And the youth, about 5%. I think these three areas probably need a bit of a bump. So I'm just wondering what is being done, what is in place, what is the plan to increase the participation by these groups. Another observation, I know that when the diaspora is discussed, it's always about how much can you donate, how much can you contribute. I see it's also highlighted in the area of diaspora investment. Hopefully, the diaspora investment is going to be more than dollars and cents. Hopefully, diaspora investment is being considered in the area of thought leadership, because there's a whole lot of talent and skill, as everybody knows, in the diaspora that right now is not being utilized. So I really hope that will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I'm sure Pastor T would address them. Pastor T, if you can take those quickly, and then we'll take the next set of comments. I think we have 2 hands up.
All right, thank you so much. I will start from the last leader, but all the comments are in place. I think we have a very short session, but one of the things we did on October 3rd, 2022 was to do an orientation for volunteers, people who have engaged us as ALG and who are willing and committed to participate in fostering activities. What Barrister Kachi said is very right. We're not a doing organization. We're a facilitating leadership organization. And you're very on point that our goal is to establish or to initiate and establish citizen-driven strategic frameworks. Again, we are shifting from the old system of putting everything on the political leadership on the top, but starting from bottom-up approach. And that has been proven to work. There are benchmarks and case studies that prove that we can glean from. And so our responsibility, we have constituted 10 working committees. You can find that in our strategic organizational plan. We have 10 working committees. And so for most of you who are participating and others who may want to, you can identify the committee that you want to participate. And once you identify, then you will participate in that committee by identifying critical issues that your focus of committee, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure, can respond to. But let me give you a very interesting progressive case study. The Economy, Environment, and Energy Committee, they are very active. They've been very active since last year, and they've identified strategic initiatives and imperatives that as ALG leadership, we're going to be looking at to foster. That's what we're looking for, that individuals who are technocrats and professionals, you join the committee where you believe you can be of best value, where your competence and your skills and knowledge are much needed. And then from there, they will present to us what a technical briefing or recommendation is on some core critical issues. We cannot solve all problems, but if we can focus on the core critical issues that are, slowing down our growth and development, that would help. So, Barrister, you are on target. We're looking forward to have more meetings with you and similar others who are interested. Now, to the last speaker on local government, and of course, you asked the same question. How can we empower the local government? I did mention to you that one of our strategic approach is to identify community-based organizations, whether they are youth organizations, women organizations, civil society, that are already working in these local governments. We're going to do something I'll share from my experience that I facilitated in Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's called Who is Doing What Where. We identify who is doing what, community group is doing what civil society organization is doing what individuals are fostering what in a particular local government. In those countries, they use district and provinces. And once we collated it, we were able to do a geo-information system, which we could locate who is doing what here, what their focus is, and how good they've been, and what is their performance. That is one of the things that we're looking to do. It's not going to happen overnight, but we understand the process. Now, to the question of also how to elect, that our community leaders, local level, don't know how to elect, whom to elect. One of the things that we've mentioned, and we're in partnership with Electoral College, they've had 9 cohorts of training on policy, or politeracy, rather, political literacy. And they've trained over 9,000 young people and other citizens. Now they've gone on radio. They're going to have their program on radio. So those are one of our partners, and we're looking forward to enhance that. One of the goals and strategies we also have is how to get this kind of training, polyliteracy, citizen social responsibility, public service leadership, ethics and values into colleges, into high schools, into trade, vocational trade centers. Once all these foundational values, virtues, and traits are embedded in the system of education, people will not only be more empowered, but then will be equipped to know what to do and how to do it. So those would be my responses on the local government side. Concerning the private healthcare system, thank you for bringing that up. One of the things that I have observed, and it's a best practice that has worked, in Liberia, for example, they've had HIV/AIDS and they've had Ebola, but their private healthcare systems have been empowered by community health workers. In Nigeria, we haven't established a sustainable community health worker system. We need that. So we need people who can serve on the health committee, who can then help to facilitate development of a strategic framework of empowering community health workers, because they are the ones that reach to the least of the population, and they can spread out. When we do that, it will strengthen our primary healthcare systems, and then next investment will be to equip the primary care systems, which they lack equipment right now. One of the things that I also found out through research is that in Nigeria, UNICEF has 20,000 community social mobilizers. We really need to upgrade them and upskill them to community health workers, not just social mobilization, but empower them with the training, the skills, the attitudes that are required to provide the primary first contact of healthcare to the population. I think I have dealt with the comments. Now on the diaspora, yes, you're right. Thank you for the observation and the statistics. Concerning the diaspora, we're not only looking for the investment. Investment can be human, financial, and it can also be, capital, equipment. In the past, there have been so much focus on the financial, but we're going to look at the human. And we have a group which is in the formative stage, which we have called the ALG T3, which is a think tank, technical think tank group that will help us on the leadership to provide technical assistance to critical issues that the committees identify. And you can be in any country, in any part of the world. So we're looking at exploring that. So we're building what we call the ALG Diaspora Initiative. We had a meeting, I think, about 2 months ago with 12 Nigerian diaspora organizations, which was very impressive and exciting. And so we're on the path towards enhancing the effective leveraging of human and financial resources of our diaspora group. I think I have answered all the comments, yes. And if I'm not, please, Ms. Jumi.
Yeah, I think you have. And also, I just wanted to add a comment in response to Mr. Charles. Yes, we do understand that our demographics, we need to improve on that, and it's part of our strategy to reach out and have more of the balance. So that is definitely under consideration. We're going to take the last 3 questions or comments that we have, and then Pastor T, if you could close with some of the initiatives and how people can be engaged with ALG, and also speak a little bit on the upcoming citizens responsibility course that we are going to be launching here at ALG. So I have Dr. Ayo Shunde. Apologies, sir. I know your hand was up for a while, so please go ahead with your question, your comment, and then I'll have Mr. Akin Fagbenro and also Mr. Segun. I'm not good with pronunciation. Also, Mr. Segun would also ask his question. So please go ahead, Dr. Ayo.
Sorry, I've already asked my question and he has responded.
Thank you. Then can we have Mr. Akin go ahead and ask your question? And then we'll have Segun ask his question. And those are the last two we'll take. And then Pastor T, you can wrap up. Mr. Akin, we've asked you to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I thank you very much for the opportunity. All we have been saying this evening and all we've been saying in the past, we don't have enough understanding of the depth of our problems. The political class, they belong to a separate segment of society. We, society, we have different class. Okay, people have won elections now. How did they win? They won by buying forms, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. They've paid money for all the campaigns. I live in Abuja. They are coming here now next month. Half of them, they have no houses in Abuja. Houses in Abuja is between 40, 50 million to buy. To rent, 3, 4, 5 million per annum. They have to raise the money to live in Abuja, to pay their campaign expenses. For the next 2 years, they will do nothing but to find the means of looting the treasury to recover their money. That's the reality of what we are. That's why they will never listen to all these things we are all saying. They are not happy themselves. In fact, they are sad, but they have been sucked into this system that is so heavily monetized. They have to survive. That's the challenge that we have. Mere words, mere appeal will not move any senator or any House of Rep member or even any governor for that matter. Words are not enough. What are we supposed to do? We have to plan to defeat them. We have to plan to dethrone them. That's the reality of the issue. That's what we have to do. We can hold many meetings like this forever. These people are just sucked in to have to survive in the system. We have to change the system.
Yes, sir.
That goes to the next thing. Therefore, this forum is too brief. I would like to volunteer to be part of the group or the subgroup here that is in charge of constitutional change into Nigerian system.
Okay.
I've done extensive writing. The blueprints are available. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's how to implement. So you can put my name down. I'll be interested in joining the small group to think through of how we can make incremental change into the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I just posted a form in the, there's a link to a form that you can complete that will give us your information. So we'll follow up with you.
Already.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll definitely reach out to you. Mr. Segun, please go ahead. That's the last comment. If you can also keep it brief, we appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Segun.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Is it clearer now?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So my comment is that instead of, like someone else said rightly, and you already clarified that you are not an implementing institution, you're sort of an organizing grant-making institution. But I'd like to also encourage you that you should start somewhere. All right, these plans are very good, and it could easily not be done at all. We have some NGOs already that you can actually start with in terms of meeting, helping them facilitate town hall meetings within local communities. All right, And also facilitating transparency and accountability will be a very good way to get your message into citizens, because people are tired of talking. We are just tired of listening on your TV. You're still hearing the same things. We all know these things, all right? But we don't see any action. So I want to say here that there are already 1 or 2 NGOs that are already taking the step forward, all right, either to the legislator or the House of Rep or the local governments. For example, local government elections are coming in maybe next 12 months or 18 months. You know, this is the right time to start holding town hall meetings, ensuring that the awareness and education is going on, you know. And lastly, I want to say the diaspora also has not been organized efficiently. That's something you can also look into. And what I mean is that, connecting the particular local government to right back
I don't know if it's me or is Mr. Shegun's audio fading out.
that holding town hall meetings with them, because okay, is it better now?
Yeah, I think we get the general. Yeah, you were in and out there, and I know that you are also looking to send your suggestions. So appreciate that, and we would wait to hear from you. We look forward to getting your comments and your suggestions. So Pastor T, do you want to go ahead and respond to those last comments, and then also to close with the initiatives? We do have some programs that we are implementing. We talked about the citizens' responsibility course that we're going to be launching, working with local government and also other civil society organizations on initiatives. So there are some things we're not going to be able to implement everything, and we will collaborate with others that are already on the ground, whether in the capacity of supporting or working alongside with them. So Pastor T, if you can go ahead and respond to those questions. I have one more hand up. I don't know if you want to add that from Francis, and then you just take that.
Okay, let's
take the last
group.
Let's
take that so that will be the last, and then I can respond accordingly.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Francis, with your question or your comments, and then that will be the very last. Thank you. We've asked you to unmute, so please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, right, thank you. Right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Hello? Oh my God.
Please go ahead with your comments. We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Right, mine is not a long one. I just want to observe that I did send in a question, perhaps the first on the chat. I just want to suggest that going forward, please, you can collate some of the questions that I asked. We don't necessarily have to interrupt the whole process and talk like I'm doing now. You can pick our questions and get the moderator to do that. Thank you. My question is the first question. I don't need an answer. I align myself with the last two speakers. What I'm hearing, I've had for the last 40 plus years, is action. We need to dethrone them, and those are his words. We need to dethrone the oligarchy. They are holding us, they are choking the country. That's the problem. That's what we need to be addressing. How do we remove these knees on our necks? Thank you.
Pastor T, if you can respond to that, to those comments.
All right.
Then, yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, you're all right in terms of we've been talking, and that's the essence of these particular forum, today's forum in particular, deepening. Like I said, if you examine the word deepening, it means we want to foster advancement. We want to accentuate, that means make visible, noticeable, and demonstrable actions. And we want to accelerate those actions. I said that at the beginning, and that's why it's called deepening the process of the new Nigeria. There's no more talking, but we want to go deeper. So thank you all for acknowledging the fact that this is what we need. And we realize that we also want to be an accountable organization because, like I said, if we're going to hold people accountable, we ourselves individually and collectively have to be accountable. So I want to say to all of you, we are very strongly, it's one of our core values, to be strongly accountable and responsive to citizens' needs, ideas, and thoughts. On the issue of one of the comments and the question about understanding our problems, we have mentioned that, yes, we are committed to enhancing political party participation. And it cannot happen overnight, but you're right. We have another 12 to 18 months time frame for another set of local government elections. And so we're working with Electoral College. And if you go to their site, you will see that in the last 6 months, they have actually mobilized and trained over 9,000. They're in their 9th or 10th cohort. They're about to go on radio to get on the local languages of educating people about the basics of politics and the dynamics of how government works. So that is in process already. So it's not just talk, there's action through our partner with Electoral College. Now, in terms of dethroning the changing system, that is also it's a very powerful phrase. Yes, we have to dethrone, but if you have to dethrone, one of the principles that I live by, and which is a biblical principle, is that you have to bind the strong man before you can go in and possess his space. And the ways to do that, to bind the strong man, is for us citizens to speak up and act up. You have said it, acting up. We don't have a strong citizen movement in Nigeria. I can give you examples and you can check it out, case studies of countries that have effectively empowered, educated, and enlightened the citizens on taking actions. And they have brought about tremendous results of change. So I believe we're in a new era and a new season whereby not only the educated ones, and it has nothing to do with education, it just has to do with the populace. When we're able to empower the citizens up to the local levels, we will see change. So we're working on identifying, just like you said, we will not do it by ourselves. We're working on identifying NGOs. So if any of you know any NGO that is active, responsible, fit our values, they are committed to Nigeria, compassionate, they are of character, we're willing to work with them and facilitate and implement change. Lastly, I think you also mentioned awareness and education. That's a major thing, and we're doing that. So we're on the road. We need your cooperation. We need your commitment. And I'm just going to go through the framework of ALG strategic priorities so that you can all understand that we do have things in the pipeline which we're looking to foster and facilitate and make happen. But we need your cooperation. We need, I'll start with can you move to the slide on call to serve?
And then yes, I'm looking for it now. Priority. Yeah, I call to serve.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Is that the ALG strategic priorities?
Okay, let's go to that.
My screen. Let me share my screen and then we can go through. So I have this.
Yeah, let's go to the ALG. Yeah. The framework for our strategy is just like you see on the slide. Number one is to create tools. And what I mean by tools, I mentioned some of it in my discussion. Basically, we have created one tool which is called the leadership assessment tool. We're going to improve on it. We used it to assess the political leadership of the parties for presidential and I think also for the governors. And then we had, a gubernatorial debate. So that's just one of the past accomplishments. So we're going to create tools like the leadership assessment tool. We're going to create character assessment tools, which we'll use to identify the baseline of where our character foundation is on individual basis, on group basis, on corporate and public sector. We're also going to create government performance index tool, which is what we're going to use, like Pastor Sonny and Ebi mentioned, we're going to use to assess what government is doing, what state governments are doing, what federal governments are doing in the critical areas of their objectives. You know, one of the things for us is we're going to look at what they propose to do. We're going to be looking at both financial, project, programmatic, and institution building. And those criteria are already out there, used by OECD countries, particularly the Nordic countries. So we're going to use those tools to ensure that we monitor and assess government performance index. Actually, one of my core areas is monitoring and evaluation. So I understand what we need to do beyond talk. Another tool that we're going to create is the Citizens Perception Index. In the US, for example, there are citizens perception surveys, there are group surveys, adolescent health surveys. We need to start ensuring that we are data-driven and we know what is happening, just like you mentioned, understanding the needs at the local level and at other levels of government and public service delivery. Next, we're also going to look at the Quality of Life Index. That there's already a tool out there that we can appropriate for use within the communities and empower civil society to use that. And lastly, we're also going to look at state-based business empowerment, environment and empowerment index, what I call BEE. And that would enhance how easy is it to function in a particular state, to establish a business and to fulfill all the requirements. And so when we get all these tools at work, we will be publishing things that will give the citizens information, insights on what is happening, and they'll be more educated, enlightened, and empowered. And that is the goal. I also want to mention to you that each of the committees, as they operate, they're going to be using universal global indexes to measure where we are. One is the Sustainable Development Global Index, the Human Development Index, which we are very low at. Our SDG, we are 139 out of 163 countries, as far as the SDG report 2022. If you look at our Human Development Index, it's also very low. We're on the low level. And, you know, we have a value of 0.56, 0.39, whereas the mid-average is in the 0.7 range. Then we're going to look at the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. Right now, we're at number 2, we're at the low end, 24, and that is very bad. We're going to look at the Health Index and the National Security Index. These tools have been developed, which each committee are going to be empowered with and use to bring us what exactly is happening in a particular sector. And then from there on, we can determine how we empower and you know, support those that are on the field doing what they need to do. So that's on the tools. Also, the next, we have trainings. And I think Sister Jumi has mentioned, we're already working on citizen social responsibility course, public service leadership course, and of course, I've mentioned the polyliteracy by the Electoral College. And if you know any other, like Barrister said, any other trainings that are available, we will be able to disseminate such information and work together with partners in that area. Now, the Diaspora Initiative, I did mention that we've had a first meeting, and Sister Jumi, you can talk on that, with almost 12 diaspora organizations, and we're looking forward to develop a memorandum of understanding of what the needs of the diasporas are and how best that we can facilitate the response to utilize their human, financial, and capital investments. And next, as our strategic priorities, we're looking at partnerships. Partnerships are local, at state, at national, and at global levels. And of course, like you saw, one of our NLS, we brought in the UNICEF country director or representative for Nigeria when we had the flood issue. And so we're going to be exploring partnership with multilateral organizations, bilateral organizations, and also we're going to hold them accountable too. Because one of the challenges Nigeria has is that there's been a lot of development assistance into the country, but we are not seeing commensurate results. So one of the things we're going to do is to hold the development aid and development assistance agencies accountable to see where the results, where the money is flowing and what is happening to planned or achievable results. Next, we're building an ALG internship group, and that's to empower young men and women who are emerging leaders, both locally and Nigerians who are studying abroad, giving them opportunity to have exchange programs during summer, to come to Nigeria, work with a civil society organization, or work with government or private sector so that they can understand the Nigerian development landscape.
Yeah, and if I can just add, in addition to that also, we are also looking for internship of students, not just in Nigeria, but across the globe too, that are interested in international politics and policies that can intern with ALG. And we're also looking for retired executives, that there would be like an information exchange between and I don't want to use the old and the new, but that generation and the new. So like it's a fusion of the of one generation with the new upcoming generation. So that's part of what we're working on. And the form that I have sent, I put a link to a form. Please go ahead and fill that if you have suggestions or if you would like to participate in some of these initiatives. We'll definitely contact you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for mentioning the APSEC. That is the Africa Public Service Executive Commission. It's an initiative that is still in the developmental stage, which we are looking at. And that is to identify competent, character-based professionals who have served in public service in any country in Africa, and they may have even in overseas, who are Africans, but in particular, we're taking one nation at a time, Nigeria. So that is, thanks for bringing that up. And it's called APSEC, African Public Service Executive Commission, those who have retired or current with over 10 to 15 years of experience. And lastly, this is the real part that we're making a call. We've spoken so much about what we can do and what we will do. But we all understand the need for resource mobilization. At the last, because in the March 9 NLS, Pastor Ituah and founder of ALG came up with the initiative of the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund. And it's called Sacrificial because we're all sacrificing to see a new and better Nigeria. And so whatever investments we have in terms of funding, capital, equipment, and of course, technical assistance will collate in that fund. And when I say technical assistance, which means if you donate your time, it's quantifiable into what that is, and that helps us to be able to see a robust, support for the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund. We're actually sending out expression of interest for Nigerian Sacrificial Fund influencers. In actual fact, Ms. Jumi can speak to that. We already have an influencer who has committed to mobilize within our own space those who can support ALG's initiatives and be able to move. So we're looking for, the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund influencers. So if it's put on your heart and you want to use your own space and your influence to drive resources, we'll most appreciate that. Ms. Jumi, if you have any comment on that.
No, I think you've covered it. And again, like I said, we have I have a couple of forms in the chat room. Please don't think that the form is complicated. I think we want to represent the kind of leadership that we're looking for. So that's why that form is that detailed. Pastor T mentioned, he did say that we've taken average as the way to go, but we want to step it up and we're looking for excellence. So that's reflected in the form that we've sent out for those that are really committed and passionate about nation building, that can give their, not just their financial resources, but their intellectual resources to help you move this nation along. So please go ahead and fill that form. And I also put my email address and my phone number in the chat. ALG's website is also in the chat room as well. So please go ahead and reach out to us through any one of those mediums. And thank you to all those that have reached out to us, to members of the team privately, expressing your interest to work with us. We really appreciate it. And this is not something that we can do by ourselves. It's a collective effort. And we're looking forward to engaging as many of you as possible to really move forward and accomplish what we're looking to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If I can just also mention, I don't know if Pastor is, if Mr. Chairman is back in, when he mentioned the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund, he did talk about transparency and accountability, that our books are going to be open and we're going to give monthly reports on that as well. So please, this is most of you know him, and some of us on this platform is very transparent, and every penny that is spent is going to be, that is donated, is going to be accounted for, and our books are going to be open and very transparent, because we want to be examples of the leaders that are accountable to the participants and collaborators. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Let me also add this. Okay. Pastor is back. But just quickly, let me also add this, because sometimes we forget when we say resource influencers, not necessarily you're given, and even if you know foundations, philanthropic organizations that whose objectives align with our mission and vision, we'll be glad for your reference and introduction. And we do have in-house people who can prepare very strong proposals with compelling cases to justify our cost for request for funding. So we're pretty open, and we're looking forward to resource influencers who can facilitate that. Just an additional.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, handing over to you if you're back in.
Yeah, just to thank everyone for a very excellent session today, and the opportunity to provide all this information as to what ALG is doing and what next. I like the question that somebody, or the comment that somebody made, I can't remember who, and it says we have to really take back our country. We have to wrestle it. We have to wrestle this country out of the hands of the people that have held it captive. We really have to drag it out. And I think somehow the Lord Almighty has provided ALG as one of the platforms, or one of the tools, or one of the legs on which the taking back of this country will rest. And one of the challenges of Nigeria is that not very many people are actually committed to Nigeria as a nation. They're committed to their own interest. They're committed to the things they want to do. They're committed to the things that concern them. So most people now are ready to continue business as usual if they can find an area of interest in whatever government is in power. And whether the country is getting better or not getting better is totally secondary to them. We cannot continue like that. We really cannot continue like that. If Nigeria was working, a lot of the things that people are afraid of, that people pray about, that people are anxious about, will not be there. We'll just be able to express ourselves as best as we can. And therefore, making Nigeria what it should be, making Nigeria great, making Nigeria a good society, really should be uppermost and paramount in the minds of all of us who consider ourselves to be Nigerians. And this is really what ALG is chesting out to try and achieve. So we have all these tools, we have all these programs, we have all these things that we have put together. Would like everyone to join hands with ALG to try and make these things work, and everyone to put their hands on the plow to really create a better Nigeria. If we can achieve this using ALG or this platform, not necessarily even in a partisan way, but lifting up our society, I think in a few short years, we can truly have a transformed Nigeria. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Pastor Pastor Tayo Fagbenro for those very clear thoughts that he has expressed on the development of Nigeria, and he's a very, very extremely valuable person, resource, and tool in this transformation of this great nation. So, Pastor Tunde, Pastor Tayo, thank you very, very much for everything and for all the energies you put into it. Thank you also, Jumoke, for your excellent moderation this evening. And I look forward to next week when we'll have yet another session of illumination and strategies for transformation of our great country. Thank you all very much, and do have a pleasant evening and a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you, Pastor T.
You're welcome.
And we'll have the statistics available for those of you that are interested in ALG statistics. We'll have that available to you as well. So just send us an email. Okay. And if you're interested in the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund, please reach out to us as well. My contact is in the group chat. Pastor Olu, can you also please put yours in the chat? Faye, can you put yours in the chat as well, so that they can reach out to any one of us on the Nigeria Sacrificial Fund? Mrs. Tomori, thank you for volunteering to serve as part of that committee, fundraising influencer. We appreciate you. Thank you, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Pastor Lu, please put your contact in the group chat. For those that are interested in contacting us about the Nigerian Sacrificial Fund, I'm going to put mine again. I had put it earlier, but I'll put it again. It's
Thank you so much. God bless you all for a wonderful evening. See you again next week by God's grace.
Thank you for putting your email address in the group, in the chat. We'll reach out to you. Faye also put an email for membership at africaleadershipgroup.org. And it's Africa, it's not with an N, africaleadershipgroup.org membership. So you can send an email to that as well. And you can also send an email to vc2@africaleadershipgroup.org. Thank you, everyone. And we also have a phone number on the website, africaleadershipgroup.org. So please check that out. The fact sheet is also in the group chat, and also the form to join ALG, and there's a form there for expression of interest for the technical think tank, which we're calling the T3. I'm going to post it again. Please forward it to anyone that has the expertise to help move Nigeria forward. Look forward to engaging all of you. Thank you and have a good evening.